Okay, today's test mostly geared towards automotive guys. HVAC guys already know this, but there's a lot of automotive guys who still need pressure temperature relationship. So here we have two tanks of R134. These are my recovery tanks. Both of them are basically nearly full. They're starting about almost equal in temperature. And if you look right there, it says about 66, 67, 68. And if you look over there, about 60, 59. One of them was in my car, one of them was in the garage. That's why it's just a little bit cooler. We're going to read the pressure on both tanks simultaneously as I use the recovery machine to pull refrigerant out of this cylinder and push refrigerant into this cylinder. And we're going to watch the tanks change from hot to cold. And as you can see, just my yellow, this is warm because that was inside my car. And we're going to use the Testo 557. I zeroed it out, and to zero out your Testo, you just press and hold and wait for it to zero. It's zeroed. So let's attach our pressure gauge. We're going to attach to the top tank, the top bleed off right here. I could do this one-handed. Okay, and we got 67 psi, and if you go to the PT chart, you'll see what temperature that is. And let's connect this one here. Okay, and we got 77 psi there, and that one was a little bit fuller, or this was the one that was a little bit warmer, and in my car this one was a little bit cooler. But this one here has some air in it because it has air contamination. It pulled out a few vehicles that had like 5%, 8%, 10%, 12% air, because these shops own these ridiculously big machines and they don't own refrigerant identifiers. They never service their machines. They don't change the seals in the end of their fittings, and it sucks in air. There's a whole bunch of excuses they give why they can't do it right, but we won't go into that right now. Just like guys in the HVAC industry make excuses why they accidentally or intentionally contaminate refrigerant because they don't mark their tanks, and they don't give their guys enough tanks. I'm just a little one-man guy, well, me and my son, and I have almost 40 tanks of different refrigerants and many of multiples of the same. And if I can do it, why can't they? They're lazy, cheap, or ignorant. Okay, won't go there. So here we go. We're going to take the temperature difference as I start. This is going to get very noisy. Sorry, guys. But I'll start this up. First, I have to plug it in. So right now the fans will come on. So only one fan comes on in the rest mode when you first start. Now this is the 4-cylinder. This is the 4-cylinder NAVAC recovery machine. For automotive, you guys definitely don't need this. This is way overkill for anything for automotive rides. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it up here, turn it there. So that just opened up the system so it could flow through. I'm going to open up the high, what's going to be the high side. This is the discharge side of the recovery machine. So it comes out of this hose right there, and it goes into this tank. On this one, it comes out of here, and I'm taking off the suction side. I'm taking off the vapor. I'm pulling vapor out. It's going in here. It goes through a ball valve that I use as a shut-off. I use this as a little purge, so when I put it up here and I want to get air out of the system, I can purge right there before I open up the ball valve. I never introduce air into my dryer or my filter or into my machine. My machine is always turned off before and after to make sure I don't introduce air into the system or moisture. What else can I say? Then the piping comes down here, comes around, and it goes up So let's start this noisy beast up. Oh, and let me open up this one. Sure, open it. I got new tops to put on here. I like my universal opener. Couldn't find my small ones. Actually I could, but I didn't want to go out to my tool bag. Okay, so that's all open. So we're open. Here's our pressures. The unit's ready for recovery. I'm going to hit the recovery knob. And one more time, let's look at the temperature. You can see where it's hitting. It's measuring 58, 59. And then on this one, 66, 67. Okay, so let's hit the button to turn on. Try that again. Okay. Now I'm going to open up the valve. When I open up this valve, this side the pressure is going to drop. This side the pressure is going to increase. Okay, now you can almost see the level of the refrigerant in the tank. And the temperature is dropping down to 56, 55. And you can see the hot gas going in at the top. See the bottom of the tank? The bottom of the tank is still 56, 57 degrees, or 60, 67 degrees. Now look at the top of the tank. 74, 77. Okay, we'll let this go for a few minutes and you'll start to notice the difference. We got 1 pound 5 ounces has removed from this tank. 1 pound 3 ounces. And I got that on grams, but that's the same. And 1 pound 5 ounces. Ounce for ounce, whatever's coming out of there is showing up over here. See how accurate that is? I heard some guy who's kind of well known in the automotive upper industry of education and selling stuff say, oh no, you cannot have and weigh accurate measurements using a recovery machine. Bullshit. You could get it down to within 5 grams. Like I've been told when I was young, like that, people who say they can't or it's impossible, that's a personal limitation. Not that it can't be done, it's just that that person can't do it. So look what we got here. See how blue it's getting now? We're down, we're hitting 30-some degrees. And we're starting to get wet. We got to the dew point in the house, we're making water. liquid level inside the tank. If you ever watch Chris's videos on HVAC-R videos, he does this on the receivers when he's winterizing the charge for some of the walk-in units and stuff like that, to show you the level for between the winter and summer charge. You do the exact same thing. And here you can physically see the level of refrigerant through the wall of the tank. And the only reason that this is not getting very hot, you see that? You see this pressure right here? 137. If you go to your PT chart and look what 137 psi with R134 and what temperature should be, it should be really hot. But the reason it's not hot, there's a big mass of refrigerant. There was like 20 pounds of cold refrigerant that was only 60-some degrees here. So the small amount of 2 pounds of refrigerant going in that might be, say, 140 degree refrigerant is only 2 pounds of 140 degree refrigerant that is being mixed with 20 pounds of 60-some degree refrigerant. So this is why we have a temperature of only about 75, 77 to 80 degrees. Getting cold. 26, 22 degrees. Look at the temperature, I look at the pressure. Too bad I didn't put up a PT chart in front of me, but anybody interested can Google PT chart R1234. No, PT chart R134, 134. And you can see the pressure-temperature relationship. Corona. So, going by the pressure, that's for those guys who like to hook up gauges to cars and say they could tell how full a car is when it's just sitting there by the pressures on the gauge. I got 2 tanks with 20 pounds of refrigerant in them. But yet, one tank, 17, 18, 20 degrees. Another tank is 78 degrees. Both tanks have 20 pounds of refrigerant in them. But yet, one tank has 10 psi, the other tank has 140 psi, but both have equal amounts of refrigerant. This is why you don't use pressure, especially on a stagnant sitting system, to tell whether the system is properly charged or not. You cannot believe how many mechanics try to gauge. Somebody asks, oh, is the system charged? They hook up their gauges, the car's not even running, and they tell the person asking the question, oh yes, it is charged, or no, it's not charged. Pressure does not tell you how charged something is. 20 pounds of refrigerant, 20 pounds of refrigerant, probably about 18 pounds of refrigerant now, but that's the pressure difference. Okay, so now I'm going to purge this out and clean the system out. I will shut this system off. Let's unplug it, let everything stabilize. Okay, now that we don't have that loud noise in here, my thing doesn't want to focus. Okay, so look at our pressures. We're now stabilized. The machine is no longer running, so it's no longer sucking, lowering the pressure. But yet, look at the pressure still stays down there. And the machine is no longer pushing refrigerant in there, but the pressure stays there. But yet both these tanks, both these units have about 20 pounds of refrigerant. You can actually see the frost line. This is actually ice now. This is no longer water. It's ice. So you can see the frost level is right about here. And when you look at it, you can see how full it is. And when you come over here, you can see how full it is. You can see the cold refrigerant on the bottom and the hot vapor at the top. See that? 90 some degrees. Phone doesn't want it. There we go. All right. Pressure temperature relationship. You cannot tell how full a car is by the pressure inside of it. We have roughly 20 pounds of refrigerant here. We have 20 pounds of refrigerant here. But yet, look at the pressure differences. If a car is sitting inside my shop and it stays there overnight, and I go hook up my gauges on it in the morning, and I'm in North Dakota and it's 20 degrees outside, I'm going to be closer to this. If I'm in Arizona in a heat wave and it's 115 degrees, the car with the engine running, the windows up, it was sitting there hot soaking for the last 15 minutes when you just turned it off with the hood closed, and I go to hook up my gauges, I'm going to see something close to that. So pressure temperature does make no difference. And if I still had 1 drop of refrigerant in there, and I had 100 pounds of refrigerant inside this tank right here, and they were both equal temperature, but yet I had 1 drop of liquid there and 100 pounds of refrigerant here, I would have equal pressure. Pressure and fill have nothing to do with each other when you still have liquid refrigerant in the system. So if I have a car that takes 5 pounds of refrigerant, but I have 1 ounce of liquid refrigerant left in that system, I will get the exact same pressure as if that car that takes 5 pounds of refrigerant had 5 pounds of refrigerant, and they're both sitting side by side, both sitting there stagnant, and take a pressure, I'll get the exact same pressure. This is something the automotive guys really got to get a hold and understand. Don't listen to that guy who tells you I can tell just by hooking up. Now, once you get below liquid and you have nothing from vapor, then your pressure is going to start dropping really fast. It's really easy to tell by the ambient temperature. And I think that's kind of good enough to make a real fast example and a demo of pressure and temperature relationship. Now, what would have happened if this was an empty tank and I didn't have 20 pounds of cold refrigerant inside the system, and I was pumping in 140 degree refrigerant into an empty tank because there's no mass, there's only the steel shell, and it's empty, and say it was 60 degrees, it would rapidly cool. You would see this whole tank from the top all the way down would get red inside the thermal camera, and the entire tank would be 140 degrees. But because I already started out with a cold mass in there was the only reason you seen the lower blue and you got seen it get all hot up here, because there was no cold liquid up here absorbing the hot vapor that was going into this tank, and the little bit of liquid, that the little mass of the thin metal, the tank, was actually getting hot up to the level of the cold. Think of it cold water. This is cold swimming pool down here. On 115 degree in the desert, if you have a cold swimming pool and the swimming pool is 70 degrees, but the air is 150 degrees, if the air touches the water, does the water instantly become 115 degrees? No. Same thing's happening here. You have a swimming pool of refrigerant, and it was 60 degree refrigerant, and you put 115 degrees vapor and a little bit of liquid on top of it that's a low mass, is not enough to change the temperature of that mass of cold on the bottom. And I gotta get this out of here before it leaks all over my place. Alright guys, see you later. Hope this was somewhat informative, and for my phone it does not want to focus. Alright guys, see you. And oh, by the way, follow up on the Testo 557S. From the day I started the first video and I got these gauges, I turned them on with the original batteries on there, and I've never turned them off. The screen has been lit up every day, 24 hours a day. And the battery bar is still 2 clicks up. I gotta say, this is definitely lasts a lot longer than the Testo 570. So they got new electronics, more efficient, energy efficient, with a more energy efficient backlit, because usually when you backlight a screen, you burn up the batteries really fast. But I want to see how fast I go through batteries, so I left the backlight on 24/7 every day since I started my first video on this, to find out how long it takes to burn out a set of batteries. I have not looked at how long the 557S battery life is claimed or stated by the manufacturers, but from what I see already, I already give it a thumbs up in battery life. Good job, Testo. Finally, somebody up there was listening about many things, and I've even sent messages, had email conversation, and had phone conversations with Testo several years ago when I got my old 570 about a decade ago, and even their older first digital one before that. And it appears the actual technical engineers, when I talk to them, and the people on the ground who actually do the work, they know what should have went into the gauges and how they should work and what should have been done. But I guess the bean counters and salesmen and marketing had other ideas to keep things out and options and not change things. So Testo never really advanced. They were good equipment. They're excellent test equipment, lab grade equipment. The Testo 557 is an outstanding gauge, but it could have been better a long time ago. But you know, big companies do not change fast, and they don't like to disturb things. And I guess this was a scenario where they waited so long to innovate. They waited so long to catch up with their software and everything like that, that field piece just came around and just obliterated and took their market share from them because of, I guess, somebody way up top on Testo was dragging their feet. And but they did their homework, and so far it seems like they released a nice gauge here. Pretty good. All right, guys, I'll see you on the next one.